Students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm streaming to you from beautiful Central Europe. I hope everybody is having a great week so far and you're being productive and you're being confident and happy. Welcome Manpreet. Hi Ruby. Welcome members. Bekjun. Hi to you. Olesia, nice to see you in the class. Make sure to join those members chat classes as well. Alicia. Hi, David. Hi, Disha. Welcome, everyone. In this class, we're looking at the speaking section, specifically part 2, the cue card, also called the long part by some people. And we are going to look specifically at planning for a Band 9 response. Okay, there's a lot that happens in that 1 minute planning time for this question. Of course, our materials are presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS help. Please visit us there. Check out the premium package. For the general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. This is a speaking class, so make sure to speak and repeat. Practice makes perfect. You have to do a lot of speaking, gain confidence, do a lot of repetition as well. Our website, students, look like this. You have speaking practice available on the website. This is the academic one here at aehelp.com with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join the premium package. The general version looks like this with the green background. You can click that big red button. Once you have the premium package, or if you try it for free, click the green button. You have a My Student account. Up here, you can click on that, and when you get into your My Student account, you will have access to videos, speaking, video chat, practice with other students, help for editing, writing, task 1, task 2, and lots more. So make sure to use that on a regular basis and improve your communication and English. All right, everyone, if you have questions at any point in time during your IELTS studies, you can send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com, and I will gladly get back to you. So right now, speaking part 2, we have more classes tomorrow as well. Task 1, writing, speaking part 3 as well. Couple of those. All right. So here we go with today's cue card. So you are in the speaking section, and you finished part 1. Part 1, some questions to get to know you, some questions on a general topic. That will take about 4 or 5 minutes. The examiner will then say, okay, that is the end of part 1. Now for part 2. Here's a card with some questions on it. Here's some note paper. Here's a pencil. You will have 1 minute to look at the questions on the card. Think about your answers. You can take notes in that 1 minute on the paper provided if you'd like. And then you will have 2 minutes to speak. I will tell you when to start, when to stop. Your 1 minute preparation time begins now. And you turn over the card as soon as the person says that. So don't stare off into space. Get focused. Remember your steps. And you turn over the card, and this is what you see. Describe a visit to a different city than your hometown. Which city did you visit and why? Who did you go with? What did you do when you were there? What is your general opinion about this city? Now, before you rush into answering your questions, what should you do? You should read that topic statement one more time. Describe a visit to a different city than your hometown. Okay, I'm not talking about my home. We're talking about a city that is different from my home. So we read the question. That's right, David. So David Valencia, I remember saying, read the question twice, just so you're super clear on what you need to do. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. So you read the topic sentence twice. You read the questions. So basically, you're being asked about a trip that you took to another city. Now, the IELTS speaking part 2 can be one of 5 different topics. What are those? So the general topics of part 2 will be one of the following categories. Okay, and what are those possible categories? So Baekjan says it could be a place, person, event, idea. And one more. Prakar Dixit says, hi sir, I got my results today. Overall, 7.5 band with a distribution of 8.5, 7.5, 7.5, 7. Thanks for your amazing videos and content, sir. Prakar, you are very welcome. Congratulations on a fantastic score. And Prakar, thank you for coming back and sharing that with us and encouraging other students. Good job. I wish you the best in your future steps. Lepay says items. Yeah, Manpreet says object. Object is missing. Yeah, object. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be one of those. Okay, so most likely your cue card will fall into one of these categories: place, person, event, idea, or object. Don't try to guess which one will be on your exam. It's virtually impossible. It's a fairly even distribution. Like, let's say 20% of the exams, 20%, 20%, 20%. So it's like rolling a 5-sided die. Could land on a 1, could land on a 5. You don't know. It could be any one of these. What's important is that you practice each one of these categories before you sit your exam, okay? So make sure to practice each of these categories at least a few times before your exam. Okay. Usually many students realize that they have a little bit more trouble with one than the other. So some students realize, oh, I have a lot of trouble talking about an idea. So then you want to focus more about an idea. Each one of these has a special way or a special set of information to clearly talk about it. So today's cue card is obviously about a place, right? So describe a visit to a different city. A city is a location, it's a place. So today we're talking about a place. And when you talk about a place, what do you need to include to make sure that your listener, your audience, has a good idea of what you're talking about? So today's category is place. Now, when you're talking about a place, you should include some important details so that your listener knows what's going on. Victor says the location. Yeah, absolutely. Where is it? Okay, so, and this is the order. So the order does matter here, students. So number 1 is location. After location, you need to include its appearance. Yeah, its appearance. Okay, very good. Okay. Landmarks are not necessarily their details, okay? Appearance. Landmarks can be included in the appearance, I suppose. So you need the location. What does the place look like? So is this city filled with skyscrapers? Are there lots of trees? Or is it a concrete jungle? There are no trees. So what does it look like? Lots of public transport or not really? You need to get around by car or on foot. So location, the appearance, what it looks like, its history. Yeah. So is it an ancient city? Is it a modern city? Why was it built? Is it the port city of Jeddah for import-export, business empire? So what's going on there? So it's the history. Culture with a city is part of its history. Okay. 4. What is the 4th point that you have to include? Okay. So culture and heritage, Shub Shirat, is part of its history. Okay. A location might not be a city. A location could be a place where you go to school. Okay. So Baekjan says attendees. Yeah, who lives there? So the people, right? Attendees. In this case, it would be the citizens. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. The attendees. So who's there? And number 5. So Rena says attractions. Rena, that would be a detail for this question. But generally speaking, when we're talking about a place, Abhishek says the function. Nikhil says activities. Yeah, what happens there, right? And Rena, that could be part of the attraction. So is there a zoo, a library, lots of museums, public parks? So what are the activities? What can we do there? Okay, and then the 6th point that we need to include. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because it doesn't matter what the place is in the question. So any question asking about a place, when you think about all of these points and you give 1 or 2 sentences, you'll basically answer all the questions on the card. Okay? And the last point that you should always include is your opinion. Okay, so your opinion, your personal experience, exactly, Jainil. So your experience, your opinion of it. That's right, Nick Hill. Yeah, I can tell that some of you are studying from the courses and you're figuring out how to do this. Okay, so it's your opinion. So students, when part 2 cue card is about a place, it could be a city, it could be a school, it could be a landmark. It could be 1,000 different kinds of places. These are the points that you need to include in your answer to have a good, clear response with good structure. And the logical order is location, its appearance, its history, its attendees, its activities, and its opinion, and your opinion. Okay? All right? Does that make sense? So does it make sense that when you're talking to a person about a place, you include these points in this order, and then you pay attention to the specific questions that are here, and that together will get you that band 9. Okay, so that's your planning for a band 9. So keep that in mind, okay? So these points in this order, considered along with the questions on the card. About a sentence for each. Will get you the right structure and content for a high band, like band 9. Okay? So that's the trick, okay? Be specific, be detailed, use your own information. Just include these points. Pandya says, absolutely. Okay. All right. So here we go. We figured out what we need to do here. And now also we want to figure out the tense. So what tense am I using for this cue card? Okay, so again, remember, it's describe a visit to a different city than your hometown. So what tense am I using? That's right, Amanjot, Victor. I'm using mostly past. Anytime you hear the past, you should always think past perfect and present perfect. Okay. Okay, remember that in the speaking, the examiner is looking for grammar range and accuracy. And when you're talking about a place that you had visited, obviously you need to talk about the place in the sense of past, past perfect, and past perfect, past continuous, and present perfect. Okay? These are usually the tenses that we apply the most when we're describing an event, a place, an occurrence in the past. Okay, so that's what we're doing, right? That's what we need to do. Okay, so we have our tense figured out. What's my next step? Okay, what am I doing next? Okay, so I know I'm talking about a place. I know the order of information. I know the tense that I'm using. What am I doing next? Yeah, so Abhishek and Manpreet says, come up with a few possible choices, some unique ideas. Okay, so next step, think about some possible choices. Okay, 2 to 3 unique ideas that you can easily talk about. Okay? Please do not choose an answer that's really difficult. Okay, so give me the names of some cities that we can all kind of talk about. So try to think international here. Try to think about some cities that we can all come up with some information, even if we've never been there. Okay, so Mumbai, perhaps, yeah. All right, what else? Lepay says Beijing. Okay, New York is coming up lots. That's good. All right. Abu Dhabi, Kyoto. Okay. Maybe Tokyo would be a little bit easier to talk about than Kyoto. I know a lot about Kyoto, but I'm not sure if others would. Nick Hill says London. Okay. Bogota, Colombia, probably as well. Victor says Moscow. Very good. Okay. Okay, so, and Ferdav says, why not Paris? Okay, so let's, somebody said Budapest. All right, so let's take these ones. Now, students, keep in mind that we want everybody to be able to talk about it a bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's take some votes. I'm going to consider what you feel is the one that most everyone can talk about, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? So which one can most of us talk about? Okay. So just by an eye shot, lots of votes coming up. So it looks like number 3 is quite popular, and I think number 3 and number 5 are coming up a lot. So it's either going to be New York or London. Let's go with New York. I think most of us can talk a bit about New York. New York is definitely popular in the media. Yeah, I would say New York and London are probably fairly easy places. I've never been to New York. It's high on my list. And I've never been to London either. I have been to Paris and Tokyo. All right. I've never been to Mumbai either. But let's do New York. Okay, so I think New York is the one that most people watching around the world will be able to give some information for, even if you haven't been there, just because it's so often seen in movies. What's the nickname for New York? I'm sure PNTI will go to Mumbai one day. So what's the nickname for New York? Anybody know? There's another way that New York is often referred to. NYC is the short way. It's New York City, but there's actually a nickname. People call it, yeah, so Bella says, I think it's Apple City. Beckchan says it's called the Big Apple. Yeah, absolutely. It's also called the Big Apple. All right, sure. Okay, where is it located? So think about these 6 points here. Okay, because now in our 1 minute, we want to take some useful notes. Okay. So just for simplicity's sake, you should not write these down. You should know these. In your notes, keep these in mind, okay? So you've got about 35 seconds to take some useful notes. Where is it? So Vanille says East Coast, USA. So north, yeah, East Coast, US. Anybody know what state it's in? Toby says it's the Empire State, also known as the state of New York. So it's New York, New York, right? State of New York. Yeah, absolutely. Good. Maksud, yeah, you can absolutely talk about New York even if you've never been there, as long as you have some good fluency. Okay? All right. Okay, so we got its location. What does it look like? So how would you describe the appearance of, it's on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, yeah. Yeah, okay. And how would you describe its appearance? So, okay, it's modern, it's got large buildings, okay. Okay, what else does New York have? Other than skyscrapers, New York has a lot of other kind of appearances. So there's a Central Park, Ferdov says, yeah. Okay, good. What else? Beckjohn says the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, and it's not just the Brooklyn Bridge, but it's got lots of bridges and inlets, right? So New York is surrounded by water. Okay, absolutely. Okay. So many bridges, yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's got Times Square, the Statue of Liberty, yeah. All right, a little bit about the history. So remember, you only have about 30 seconds for the notes here. So you want to move along. Don't get stuck on one idea for too long. You're writing these down super fast, obviously, as they're coming to mind. So a little bit about the history of New York. What's the history of New York? What can you say about the history of New York? Okay, what's interesting about the history of New York? Yeah, unfortunately, in modern history, this is the September 11th attacks in 2001, right? Yeah, so that was an unfortunate part of its modern history. What else can you say about its history? Okay, New York has a very rich history. Yeah, so it's a symbol of independence, right? Okay, give me a little bit more about its history. What do you find in New York? Think about the attendees. I'm sure you'll come up with this. Many of you will come up with it. Roman is asking, what should you talk about if you don't know anything about the history? You should be able to come up with a little bit. Yeah, so it's an economic hub. It's a financial capital. It's part of its history, right? Its culture. And as students from around the world, one point that you might find interesting is it's a mix of world cultures. It's the site of immigration from around the world. So people from all parts of the world go to New York City. Historically, it's very rich with world culture. Okay? So now, you don't have time to write full sentences or even lots of words like I'm writing. You would just be able to write down rich world culture like this. Okay? So, what are the attendees? Who lives in New York? Okay? Rich and famous people live in New York. People from around the world live in New York. Americans live in New York. Lacutor says Mike Tyson lives in New York. Actors and actresses. Okay. Yeah. So lots of people live in New York. Part of Trump's family lives in New York. Sure. All right. And what kind of activities can you do there? So what can you do in New York? All right, just quickly some activities. So national monuments like the Statue of Liberty, famous places like, okay, shopping. So Catherine says world-class shopping. Shopping and fashion. Yeah, absolutely. Pandya says there are beaches, food trucks, real American sandwich. So food, restaurants. Yeah, New York is very famous for its restaurants. Okay. Food trucks as well. Very famous for pizza. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Go to famous universities like Columbia University in New York. Absolutely. Okay. Broadway and Theater District. Very good, Hit Patel. Yeah. Great choice. Okay, so we have lots and lots of information. Now remember, you only have about 30 seconds, so you just do all of this in point form. Fantastic, we're doing a great job. And we have about 10 seconds left before the examiner says your 1 minute preparation time is up. Please begin speaking. So before that happens, what do we need to do? Okay, before the examiner says your 1 minute preparation time is up, please begin speaking. What do we need to do? Nick Hill says, get the first sentence down. Bekjan says, we did not write the time. Maybe now's the time, Bekjan, to state the time. Yeah, so the first sentence, okay? It's very, very important. So get your first sentence ready before your 1 minute preparation time is up so you can target the question and begin speaking right away. One of the classic mistakes that many students make in part 2 is the examiner says, okay, your 1 minute preparation time is up, please begin speaking. And the student goes, okay, well, I've visited a lot of interesting cities outside of my hometown, including London, Tokyo, Paris. But the one really interesting city that I would like to talk about today is New York City that I visited with my friends a couple years ago. Okay, I'm not sure if you're checking the time, but 30 seconds just passed, okay? And in the 30 seconds, I've only said 1 point so far, which is I visited New York City with some friends. It's not going to get a good band score, okay? You need to make much better use of time for those high band scores. You need to start speaking on topic right away. So one of the most fascinating cities I've ever visited outside of my hometown is New York, about 5 years ago with a few of my friends. Boom, 10 seconds, information heavy, answering the question right away. That's what you need to do, okay? That's the way to do it. So the first sentence, some of you are coming up with it. Let's see what you have. Okay. So Vin says, I have visited a plethora of beautiful places. No, Vin. Okay, we want direct answers. Amanjot says, well, traveling is something that everyone likes. No, Amanjot, I don't care about that. I want the city right away. Let's see, who else? First sentence. I want a direct sentence that gets high band scores. Mohammed says, New York is the most populous city in the United States, and the city is the largest in the state of New York and in the United States of America, and I visited this city 2 years ago. Mohammed, finish the sentence with, and I visited this city 2 years ago, and you've got a good start. You've got a first sentence that's a good start. David says, one trip that I had in my bucket list in 2010 was to go to New York City. In 2012, it became a reality. Very good, David. So it's original, and you're direct. So you're telling me that there was a city you had on your bucket list that you wanted to go to. It was New York City, and this became a reality for you in 2012. That's perfect. So I can clearly tell that you're answering the question. Use the question in your first sentence. One more time. Use the question in your first sentence to make sure that you are on topic, okay? Ferdov says, I visited the famous city of New York, which is, of course, far from my hometown of Moscow. Okay, Ferdov, I'm not sure where you are in Russia, but yeah, so very good, okay? Roshni says, well, I visited a cutting-edge city, New York, outside of my hometown. Yeah, and name your hometown, okay? Might as well. So back in 2017, I had the pleasure of visiting New York City with a couple of friends, which is about 5,000 kilometers from my hometown of Victoria, or better said, a 6-hour plane ride. All right, that's my first sentence. I want to answer the question very directly using the topic of the question. Okay, remember the cue card question? The topic was describe a visit to a different city than your hometown. Okay, so I'm emphasizing that, and why not make the comparison between the city, my hometown, and include the actual distance between the two places. That gives a lot of clarity for my listener of where I live, where I went to, right? So back in 2017, I had the pleasure of visiting New York City with a couple of friends, which is about 5,000 kilometers from my hometown of Victoria, or better said, a 6-hour plane ride. Boom, I'm ready to go. Okay, all right. So, what's my next sentence? What's my next sentence, okay? And again, students, make sure to speak and repeat. Now, all we're going to do is we're going to build our response based on the sequence of location, appearance, history, attendees, activities, and opinion, okay? So I'm just going to pick out 1 or 2 sentences from what you tell me that I feel are good high band responses for this, and I'm going to add it to our response. So what should follow here? I can look at my notes. I can look at my card again. Abdullah says, today I'm going to talk about a wonderful city of New York. It's okay, Abdullah, but get right into it. It's your personal experience. So talk about a city you visited outside of your hometown. Be personal, okay? All right. Next sentence. Where is this New York City? Where is it located? Hadi says, there is lots of corona there. You cannot visit it. Yeah, I could have in 2017. We didn't have corona then, right? Remember, it's in the past. Okay? It's in the past. And I'm showing past perfect here as well. Okay? All right. So obviously I want to talk about the location next. So give me some sentences about the location. Let's keep it moving. Don't try to write the perfect sentence, because in speaking you have to be fast and you have to be fluent. So, okay, I'm your listener. Of course, one of the first questions in my mind is, I know New York, but where is New York? Can you tell me where New York is? So never assume that your examiner knows what you know. That's one of the golden rules, right? So yeah, most likely your examiner knows where New York is, but the question the examiner has in their mind is, can you, in English, clearly explain where New York City is, right? Okay. I'm not sure if my chat is stuck or what, but I don't see any answers coming up. So I'm going to write the next bit here. Okay, I think there's maybe a lag in the system. All right. So I would do something like the Big Apple is located along the northeastern seaboard of the U.S. along the Atlantic coast in the state of New York. All right. Okay. Let me try to refresh here a little bit. Just give me 1 second. All right. Let's see if we get some more movement in the chat now. All right. So, yeah, now I see it. Interestingly, the chat was stuck on my end. Yeah, so now I can see it. I can see all your answers. Good. Whoa, you've written a lot. Okay. So Panya says New York City is the nickname NYC and it has a great history of becoming the financial capital of the U.S. Lots of beaches and statues. Okay, Panya, you're kind of jumping ahead here. So we want to go with location first. Amanjot says it is situated in the northeast coast of the U.S. and is also known as the Big Apple. Okay. Victor says New York City is located in the U.S. near California. Victor, it is nowhere near California. It is exactly on the opposite diagonal side of the U.S. So California is southwest coast, or central to southwest coast, and New York is northeast coast. So they're very much the opposite sides of the U.S. Bekjan says this is also known as the Big Apple and is located in the northeast part of the U.S. near the Atlantic Ocean. Bekjan, it's not near the Atlantic Ocean. It's literally along the Atlantic Ocean. So the Atlantic Ocean flows in and out of New York City. Okay. So the Big Apple is located along the northeastern seaboard of the U.S. along the Atlantic coast in the state of New York. It is an incredible city, and I have always wanted to go there. Fine, so throw in a little bit of personality, a little bit of personal opinion. What does the city look like? So what does this city look like? So now we've got its location. Now we want to include its appearance. Pegasus, you should not run out of time answering part 2 if you're doing good planning. So notice what I'm doing here. I have my opening sentence ready. I start right away. I explain the location of the city. Then I include a little bit of personality. I've always wanted to go there. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about its appearance. Anas Kulebo says New York City is one of the most interesting places in the U.S. There are a lot of different activities, histories, and statues, and of course a wide range of street food. Anas, it's good, but you're jumping from one idea to the next without going into detail. Okay. Abhishek says, not only is it a big metropolitan city with lots of skyscrapers and famous monuments, but also has a central park and lots of inlets. Okay, so not only does New York have many amazing skyscrapers, like the famous Empire State Building, but it also has a beautiful Central Park and many inlets which are connected or which are crossed by massive bridges like the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, yeah, so there's a bit about its appearance, right? Now we're starting to get the image of New York City. Again, practice your visual speaking. So not only does New York have many amazing skyscrapers like the famous Empire State Building, but it also has a beautiful Central Park and many inlets which are crossed by massive bridges like the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, so now we're starting to get an idea of what it looks like. Let's get right into the attendees. So who lives there? Okay, who lives there? All right, and I see lots of good descriptions of the city now. Okay, so Oishi, those are great. Roman says, at a glance, the city looks sparkling with banner advertisements of products. Moreover, I can find lots of greenery around the city and lots of street markets. Very good, Roman. Make it personal. My, I, me. Okay, this is a city that you have visited or you had visited. Okay, Shub Shirat says it has enormous buildings and the Statue of Liberty, which is very famous throughout the world. Many people from around the globe love to visit there. I went there with my friends. We went to the top of the Statue of Liberty, and it was incredible. Okay, make it personal. It's about you. Inaja says there are a variety of nationalities. Lots of wealthy and famous people live there. Yeah, okay, Inaja, good idea. Put it into a more complex sentence. We're looking for grammar range and accuracy. Okay, Bekchan says the city is inhabited mostly by Americans, many famous actresses and actors. Okay, so the city is inhabited by over 10 million people, made up of cultures from around the world. Italians, Jews, Indians, Chinese, Russians, to name a few. I heard at least a dozen different languages during my 2-week stay. Of course, New York has lots of rich and famous people also. In fact, I bumped into Alec Baldwin at a cafe just casually ordering a famous cup of New York brew. All right. So there we go. Make it your own. Again, this is about you. It has to be personal. It has to be unique. Okay? Visualize it. Right? Visualize it. Ifeoma says, hi, Adrian. Thank you so much for your classes. I just got my result for general training, had 7 in my writing, and overall band score of 8 using techniques I learned here. The other scores were listening, 8, reading, 9, speaking, 7.5. Ifeoma, thank you so much for coming back and sharing. Those are amazing scores. You should be absolutely proud of yourself, and it's something that you need to carry with you to the rest of your days. So good for you, okay? Great job. I wish you the best in your next steps in life, Ifeoma. Thank you for sharing. All right, so back to point here. So this is what we're doing. We're going step by step, and we're connecting to ourselves, okay? Past tense, I heard at least a different, so, okay, who lives in this city? Lots of different cultures from around the world, Italians, Jews, Indians, Chinese, Russians, to name a few. I heard at least a dozen different languages during my 2-week stay. All right, so what's happening there? Okay, all right. Gurdev, for ideas for persons, ideas, objects, join our premium package at aehelp.com. It's worth spending a couple dollars to get all of that material, okay? All right, So the people there, the famous people. Ferdov says, I went there with 2 classmates, not only to visit, but also to do a bit of work. Yeah, so the activities are coming up, right? So we have our attendees. Now Ferdov says, maybe check the cue card, check your time, the activities. Okay, so what am I doing in New York? All right. I both visited many interesting places in New York, like the Statue of Liberty, check my notes here. Times Square. And several museums with my good friends David and James. And we also enjoyed a lot of fantastic street food along the way. All right. Good. Okay. Baekjun says, in this city there are an umpteen amount of activities that people can engage in depending on their interests, visiting famous landmarks, taking pictures, and going to dance clubs or nightclubs for some big parties. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I loved every moment of my stay in the city that never sleeps, and I would love to go back there someday and do some more exploring. Okay, so yeah, we're doing great and we're speaking lots. We're probably running out of time, and before that happens, we want to check our cue card, and we want to make sure that we've answered these questions. So which city did you visit and why? We talked about the city. We described it. It's New York. We did talk about why a little bit, to sightsee and to travel. Who did you go with? With my friends. I even named them. What did you do when you were there? We talked about that. And what is your general opinion? And I think we talked about that as well. So we've done a fantastic job. If the examiner hasn't stopped us yet, then we might add some more details, okay, and just elaborate. So I can say something like, I even made a few new friends there who I keep in contact with. As well, I bought some fantastic souvenirs for my friends and family to take back home. Oh, and did I mention I even had the chance to go see a New York Knicks basketball game. Okay, so you can elaborate on what you can do there, all right? At this time, I'm sure the examiner will say, okay, your 2 minutes is up. Please pass back the card with the questions. And now we'll continue with part 3. For part 3, I will ask you some more questions related to the topic of part 2. Okay, and then here you'll go on to part 2. So everyone, let's go through this and let's do a bit of speaking practice. So I'm going to read our response, speak and repeat, copy my intonation and my pronunciation as much as possible. Here we go, everyone. So the examiner says, okay, your 1 minute preparation time is up. Please begin speaking. And so you start. Back in 2017, I had the pleasure of visiting New York City with a couple of friends, which is about 5K from my hometown of Victoria, or better said, a 6-hour plane ride. The Big Apple is located along the northeastern seaboard of the US, along the Atlantic coast in the state of New York. It's an incredible city, and I have always wanted to go there. Not only does New York have many amazing skyscrapers, like the famous Empire State Building, but it also has a beautiful Central Park and many inlets, which are crossed by massive bridges, like the Brooklyn Bridge. The city is inhabited by over 10 million people, made up of cultures from around the world: Italians, Jews, Indians, Chinese, Russians, to name a few. I had at least a dozen different, I heard at least a dozen different languages during my 2-week stay. Of course, New York has lots of rich and famous people too. In fact, I bumped into Alec Baldwin at a cafe just casually ordering a famous cup of New York brew. I both visited many interesting places in the city, like the Statue of Liberty, Times Square, several museums with my good friends, David and James, and we also enjoyed a lot of fantastic street food along the way, especially the famous New York pizza. I loved every moment of my stay in the city that never sleeps, and I would love to go back there someday and do some exploring. I even made a few new friends who I keep in touch with. As well, I bought some fantastic souvenirs for my friends and family back home. Oh, and did I mention I even had the chance to go see a New York Knicks basketball game? I love basketball, and that was something I had really wanted to do. All right. Ois, my opinion is there. So I loved every moment of my stay in the city that never sleeps. I would love to go back there. So that's my opinion. Okay. All right. So that is speaking part 2. That's what you need to do. Again, remember, it's possible to do this in the 3 minutes when you practice and you have the right strategy. You need to know that when you're talking about a location, a place, you need to describe its location, where it is, the appearance, history, attendees, activities, your opinion, and you will most likely answer all the questions on the card. Look at the card, make sure you answer those questions while you're speaking, and you'll get a nice high band score. That's it for today. Tomorrow I will be back with some more classes at the same time. And for all of you who haven't checked out our websites yet, I highly recommend getting our premium package at aehelp.com. Spend a few dollars, save a lot, stress, time, money. And for general IELTS, gieltshelp.com. Have a wonderful day. Great interaction, everyone. Much love to all of you. I love all the positive vibes and your emojis. Eugen, fantastic emojis. I'm Adrian, signing out for today. Hopefully I will see most of you tomorrow. If it's late in your country, sweet dreams. And goodbye for now.